Okay.
Okay, so that's going
All
somewhere.
right.
I hear you. Everything seems good. All right, week two, Frenzy Bob. You don't have a story up yet, correct?
No, I have a draft in. I just haven't printed it yet or
Okay,
published it yet.
I gotcha. I'm gonna just go by your notes. So I'll kind of go off of memory here. Where's that list? List. Keith. There we go. Frenzy 5. All right. All right, so we got Cumberland Valley goes to Central York. Tons of storylines in this one. York High at Hempfield. York High had that great game last week against Woodland Hills, correct?
Yeah, Woodland Hills.
Okay.
Yeah, they got stopped at the goal line right at the end.
Yep. Elizabethtown at McCaskey. This seems to be. Is this a yearly game?
It's been recently. I
Pretty
don't
yearly,
know.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back at least like 2 or 3 seasons, I would think. Probably even more than that. Probably like 4 or 5.
Gotcha. New Gettysburg, New Oxford. This is a battle of former uh Division
York
Two.
Adams. Yeah, and they're like 10 miles apart.
Yeah.
Honestly, most of the games were like all like 0-1 teams against 1-0 teams. So
Yeah.
it was actually kind of hard to pick out a couple. And, Harrisburg and McDevitt are both Saturday again. So
Yep. The only
they're
game
always easy to talk about.
The only game I'm upset that I couldn't get a photographer to this coming Friday was CD East at Cedar Crest. Both of them are
Yeah.
1-0. That's the only
Yeah.
other game that I'm upset that we couldn't get them to. So, but
Yeah.
oh well. So
I mean, there's like 50 games, dude. It is what it is.
yeah,
you can't, you
exactly.
can't be expected to cover them all.
I know that's because but like if it's closer, I'm like, oh man, I got Octorara Pequay Valley as my second game. I have
Yeah.
Solanco and Cocalico.
Yeah.
So
You got to go with proximity
yeah,
sometimes too.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, here we go.
All
Three,
right.
2, 1. It is week 2 of the high school football season, and that means it is time for our second Frenzy 5 edition. I'm Andrew Kalista for Fox 43 Sports, joined by Keith Schweigert, an extraordinarily great writer for high school sports on our digital team. Keith, welcome back to the Frenzy 5.
Thanks, Andrew. It's great to be here as always. Pretty exciting week coming up too. So let's get to it.
It is a very exciting week. And for that exciting week, we are going to start with our game of the week and also our very first high school sports live game, which can be seen on Fox 43.2, which is antenna TV on your dial. And that is a great one that's kind of become a yearly matchup. Cumberland Valley travels down 83 to take on Central York. Keith, a lot of storylines in this football game.
Yeah, this one should be a good one. Both teams coming off impressive wins in week one. Cumberland Valley knocked off Manheim Township 31-27. That was a really good game. Central York beat Central Dauphin 36-19. And the storyline in that one that was interesting to me is we're used to seeing Central York throwing the ball all over the place with Bo Pergula. Of course, he's gone now. He's at Penn State. So what do? They ran it all over the place. Oh, more than 300 rushing yards in that win. Nazir Still, the guy who took over for Beulah quarterback, pretty good game, 111 rushing yards and a touchdown. He also threw a 66-yard touchdown pass, so it looks like he's settled right in really well. Parker Hines was the guy that caught that pass for them. And then Jules Goff, 163 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. He was the hero of the game for Central York. So for Cumberland Valley, this is going to be a challenge for their defense, and their defense did get stung a little bit against Manheim Township. Township threw for 4 touchdown passes in that game. Hayden Johnson, he had 340 passing yards too. So I know, that's not really what Central York was up to last week, but that got to be a little bit concerning for Cumberland Valley on the defensive side of the ball, how they're going to slow down this apparently, once again, very potent Central York offense.
Absolutely. And, the storyline that I like is head coach for Cumberland Valley and Cumberland Valley alum Josh Oswald coming back to Central York, where he kind of cultivated the Perbula brothers as the quarterback, first with Cade and then also with Bo up until Coach Jerry Yonchik came over and took over for Bo's last 2 years. So that's a storyline right there in and of itself. Gonna be a great game. Exciting on a lot of fronts for Fox 43. Not only the game of the week, but also high school sports live. So make sure you tune into that one. We're gonna head out Route 30 now to Gettysburg and New Oxford. Gettysburg gone from the York Adams. These two former Division II foes. Gettysburg, the Warriors, up to the Mid-Penn where they once were, and New Oxford. Hey, this isn't the New Oxford team when I arrived in this area in 2016. They've been to the playoffs a couple times. Coach has them going in the right direction.
Yeah, it's a program that does appear to be on the rise, and you mentioned the big story in this one. Less than 10 miles separate these two high schools. So and they were division rivals when they were both York Adams teams. So a lot of familiarity here, even though Gettysburg is now no longer part of the conference. Both teams coming into this one 1-0. Gettysburg celebrated its return to the Mid-Penn by knocking off Hershey last week. New Oxford, big win over Meridian Springs, 41-0. So again, it's early. We don't, even though it's week 2, we really still don't really know what either or what any of these teams are going to be about yet based on 1 week. But it's a good matchup, and there, shouldn't be a problem finding game film for either of the coaching staffs on this one, since they're all pretty familiar with facing one another over the years.
New Oxford, by the way, the very last team in the playoffs last year for District 3 in 5A. Gettysburg in the same classification. So, at week 8, when you start biting your nails for power rankings, whoever comes out on the short end of this game's stick is going to look back and say, hey, we let a possibility slip away from us. So that is something to watch. If about a little bit something about me, folks, is I don't really care how long it takes me to go in a car. So we are crisscrossing the DMA going all over the place. So from Gettysburg, we're going up along the Susquehanna for a game that I'm calling a matchup of American ingenuity. Steelton High Spire and Westinghouse. Those are, whether it was the steel being made along the river for Bethlehem Steel with the rollers back in the day, or Westinghouse, that name is all over the place in American engineering history. This is a great game. Both teams come in 1-0. Of course, Steel High is playing their second Western PA team after they beat Bishop Canavan in that Peach Bowl game, Keith.
Yeah, and what an impressive win for Steel High last week. As you mentioned, Canavan comes from out of the West. They came into the game ranked number 1 in the state in Class A by Penn Live. Steel High came into that one number 3. So right off the bat, just a prime time matchup among single A football powers. And the game lived up to the billing. Steel High managed to win 21-14, but boy, what a finish for this one. Canavan was driving, had the ball down at the 1-yard line. Bad snap on third down. There was mass confusion as they were trying to get lined up to get a playoff before time ran out, and the Canavan quarterback kind of lost track of the downs, spiked the ball to stop the clock. That was 4th down. Steel High got the ball back and was able to run out the clock. So a very interesting way to win a game for Steel High, but they will take it. And a very impressive showing right off the bat. Ja'Kai Noss did it all for Steel High in that game. He had a touchdown run of 11 yards. He had a 59-yard touchdown reception, and he took an interception 85 yards to the house, all in the first half when Steel High built its lead. He basically had a hand in all of their touchdowns. So he's going to be a player to watch for Westinghouse. I don't know too much about them coming out of the West, but they opened the season pretty impressively with a 40-8 win over Clairton. Clairton, I do recognize they're a pretty steady WPO playoff team in single A out there. So Westinghouse also coming off an impressive win in week 1. Should be a good matchup for this one in Steelton.
Pretty sure Clairton was in the state championship game just not too long ago with pretty good backs, and I believe Lamont Wade, the old Penn State 5-star recruit, came from Clairton. So yes, that is a winning program. So that is definitely something to watch. By the way, go see Alex Colley's Twitter celebration for the young man from Steel High. Has a great one. I believe it was the Karate Kid. I'm not so sure. Alex Colley is more up on the pop culture. So from along the Susquehanna, we're going to get out to 283, and we're heading down to Lancaster for a good one, but what could be a very good one. E-Town and JP McCaskey. McCaskey won last week. Last year, they had 2 wins the entire season, so they're already at half of that. They're taking on the E-Town Bears in what has become kind of a yearly rivalry game between E-Town and JP McCaskey.
Yeah, and I think the noteworthy thing about this one, and the reason I picked it as part of the Frenzy 5, is both teams came through for their first-year head coaches last week. Elizabethtown knocked off their neighborhood rival Bonneville 43-21 in the first game under new coach Keith Stokes. And McCaskey went down to Philadelphia, knocked off John Bartram 30-24 in overtime to deliver a win for Ben Thompson, who took over as coach in the offseason kind of suddenly and really didn't have a whole lot of time to, establish himself there. So impressive for McCaskey. They've been a struggling program over the last close to a decade or so, if not more. But, people with long memories like me remember when they were like a perennial contender back when the district had 4 classifications. They were in the playoffs quite a bit in 4A, had a lot of great players in Perry Patterson, Joel Holler, some of the, just to name a few. So it would be great for their program if they could, sort of rebound here and start making some positive steps. And they're off to a good start under Thompson. We'll see if they can keep that going against Elizabethtown this week.
You mentioned Perry Patterson, a man after my own heart, Keith, the great Syracuse quarterback. I was up there when Perry Patterson was a quarterback, and I believe he did outduel some dude from Wilson that I think is still playing in the NFL in a backup role. Led to a viral video on YouTube when YouTube was in its like infancy stage, I believe, with the tape being ripped up. So, the good times, we talk about that. But like you said, I'm impressed with that win over John Bartram, because the one thing that I think about high school football is learning to win for programs that are struggling. So an overtime game, McCaskey pulls out a victory. That's learning to win. And that program needs stability, and hopefully they get that stability for the kids going forward. But week 1 win is very good. So our final game to watch is mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest wing T offense of them all? Solanco and Cocalico. And I just came up with that one on the fly right there. I'm pretty proud of myself. My sister would be. She's a Disney fan. So Cocalico and Solanco at the home of the Golden Mules.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, get here early for this one. This game generally will not take very long because you're not going to see a whole lot of passes. I don't think either team will put it up more than half a dozen times total in the game. Both teams off to pretty good starts. Cocalico knocked off Warwick last week. Solanco got a big win in their first week out. So we'll see how it goes. These teams used to clash they used to be section mates for quite a while. Now that the Yellow League has expanded, they've moved away from one another, but the familiarity is there. The offenses will be there. Both teams should know how to defend it, having looked at it in practice all these years. So yeah, it should be a really good game. Very intriguing matchup right off the bat.
So if Solanco wins this game, I'm telling you right now, look out, because they might win the Section 3. Because Cocalico is a good football program. They're in Section 4. Section 4 is a madhouse. And I know, they went straight by enrollment and things like that. But Section 3, Solanco could definitely make a run. Talking to those guys, hey, they already knocked off LS, who's been a pretty good program the last couple years in the Milk Jug rivalry. And their kids told me out at LL Media Day, hey, that's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is getting back at every single team that they lost to. And they did lose to Cocalico last year. So that's going to be a fun one. I'm actually going to be at that game myself after I get back from West Lafayette in the Penn State Purdue game on Thursday. Hey, it's going to be a fun week, Keith. I'm excited for this. I love talking high school football. I love the insight that you bring and everything. So week 2, that is our Frenzy 5. You ready for this one?
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right. We'll see you out there. And don't forget about the High School Football Frenzy show at 6 p.m. Lindsey Barna, Alex Colley will get you set. And then our Fox 43 Frenzy highlight show, a full half hour at 11 p.m. on Friday. We hope to see you there.
Dude, you called an audible on me. I had York and Hempfield as my other game, not Solanco Cocalico.
Oh man, I totally forgot.
You know what? It's actually all right. I can put it. I'll put that one in because that's an oversight on my part. I didn't even know I didn't even have them both at 1-0.
Dude,
that's a better game anyway.
I had to come up with 5 games for my other 5 games to watch for. So I was looking at my notes, and I literally have the first game I have is literally a cross league rivalry, York High and Jaheim White. It's right there.
Dude, it's
1 yard
good.
short of victory. I completely forgot when I was going down. I completely missed it. You sure we don't want to just record that segment?
No. I'm down with it. That's fine. That's a good game too. It's not like, we put some dog in there.
Okay.
That's fine.
Alrighty.
We'll save York and Hempfield for some other time.
Okay.
I think York's going to win that game pretty handily. So,
Yeah.
I think Solanco Cocalico is actually a better game. I guess I didn't want to go too LL League heavy.